think about those, those big moments we all anticipate for our kids. Sweet 16, prom, turning 18, 21. As parents, we kind of picture these like highlight reels in our heads. But what if that connection? What if it's broken? What's it like when those milestones hit and, well, you're not part of the picture. You're on the sidelines.
It's really striking, isn't it, how these moments that are supposed to be about family connection become these incredibly painful reminders of separation for alienated parents. The joy just isn't there. It's replaced by silence, or that really sharp feeling of being excluded.
Exactly. And that's what we're really getting into in this deep dive today, parental alienation, and how it casts this shadow over these huge life events for parents and for the kids too. And it's important to say up front, right? This isn't just like normal co-parenting disagreements.
No, not at all. Parental alienation, researchers like Dr. Amy Baker, Dr. Craig Childress, they've studied this extensively. It's a deliberate campaign, really, one parent trying to damage the child's bond with the other. Dr. Baker talks about a cult of parenthood, where one parent uses these powerful emotional tactics, creates this unhealthy bond, shutting the other parent out.
And Dr. Childress, he looks at it clinically, talks about a shared persecutory delusion. Okay, let's unpack that a bit. It's like, imagine two people get this idea, this totally unfounded suspicion about someone, that kind of feed off each other's fears, twisting things, until this false belief feels completely real, even with no actual proof. That's sort of what happens here. The alienating parent and the child share this narrative that the other parent is bad or unloving.
That's a good way to put it. And the key thing is this negative view. It lacks any real legitimate justification based on the targeted parent's actual behavior.
So what does this actually look like? What are the real-world impacts when these big birthdays, these milestones roll around?
Well, that's what we want to explore. Our aim today is really to shine a light on these painful experiences, maybe validate what some parents are going through, and understand the psychology behind it. And if you're listening, if this sounds familiar, please know you are not alone in this.
We'll be drawing on, clinical research, expert insights from people like Dr. Baker and Dr. Childress, and also those really powerful personal stories from parents living this. So let's start with the Sweet 16. What's that like for an alienated parent?
Well, picture the parent. The child's turning 16. They probably put a lot of thought, a lot of care into picking out just the right card, the right gift. It's an expression of love, right? An attempt to connect.
It's like reaching out, hoping for something back, a vulnerability.
Exactly. And so often that vulnerability is met with, rejection. Painful rejection. Dr. Baker's research actually points this out. A really common and frankly cruel tactic is just discarding the gifts, throwing away the letters.
So the parent sends this heartfelt thing, and the child might never even see it. It just ends up in the trash.
It happens. It really highlights how deliberate the alienation can be. And even if the gift does get through, the reaction can be tough. Clinicians see it often. A lack of gratitude, maybe even open rudeness or spite.
Like the gesture itself gets twisted.
Precisely. That loving gift, it's reinterpreted through this negative lens the alienating parent has created. It's seen as manipulative, maybe an attempt to cause guilt, not as genuine affection. The child's almost been coached to misunderstand it.
Wow. It's like there's this wall, this kind of reaction. It doesn't just spring up overnight, though.
Oh, definitely not. It's usually the result of years, really, of conditioning. The alienating parent's constant negative talk, sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle. Things like, oh, he's just trying to make you feel guilty, or she doesn't really care about you. It builds up. It creates this filter.
And that leads to something called splitting.
Yes, exactly. It's a psychological defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Pretty primitive, actually. The child starts seeing things in black and white. One parent is all good, the other is all bad. And to maintain that loyalty to the good parent, they feel they have to reject the bad one. It becomes almost necessary for them psychologically.
So the alienated parent, on their kid's Sweet 16, it must feel like they've planned this whole party, put their heart into it, and the guest of honor just ignores them. Or worse, the isolation sounds immense.
It really is. One parent described it perfectly. Planning a party that no one attends. The emotional toll is huge. Dr. Sue Kornbluth talks about ambiguous loss, grieving someone who is still alive but emotionally gone. That can be even harder than grieving a death sometimes because there's no closure. The child's there, but the relationship isn't.
That's just heartbreaking. And yet, you also hear about the resilience of these parents, right? They keep trying, setting those little breadcrumbs, as some call them.
Absolutely. And that persistence, even when it feels futile, is so important. Those messages, those cards, even if they seem to vanish, They matter long term. They're a constant signal. I love you. I'm here. It keeps a door open, potentially, for the future.
Okay, let's shift gears. Prom night. Usually pictured as this glamorous, exciting rite of passage. Photos, fun. But for an alienated parent.
Prom night can be, well, a very public form of exclusion, painfully public. You might have a targeted parent literally watching from afar, seeing their child dressed up, taking pictures with the other parent, the whole group, and just feeling that sharp ache of being totally left out.
And often that exclusion isn't accidental, is it?
No, the research shows it's often very calculated. The alienating parent might deliberately withhold information, dates, times, locations of pre-prom gatherings, or even go so far as to ask the school to limit contact with the targeted parent. It's a strategy. Preventing the targeted parent from attending children's functions, it's listed as a known alienation tactic.
And if the parent does manage to show up, say, for pictures beforehand?
The interaction can be brutal. The child, stuck in that loyalty bind, might refuse photos flat out, or give stony silence, or just act like the parent isn't even there.
Why? To maintain that alignment with the alienating parent.
Yes, they have to uphold their side of that unspoken loyalty contract. Any kindness towards the targeted parent, especially in public, feels like a betrayal. It risks the alienating parent's disapproval, which the child has been conditioned to need.
You've mentioned this loyalty contract a few times. Can you say a bit more about why it's so powerful?
It's this deep-seated, often unspoken belief the child develops. My safety, my acceptance from parent A depends on me rejecting parent B. On a big, visible night like prom with peers and the other parent's family around, that pressure just ramps up. Even a simple civil exchange feels dangerous.
So the child must be dealing with a lot internally, conflict, pressure.
Oh, absolutely. The internal conflict is huge. Research suggests these kids often have to distort their own memories, downplay or forget the good times with the targeted parent, focus only on the bad, maybe even invent things.
Invent things,
Yeah,
like false memories.
Yes, sometimes unconsciously. It's called confabulation. It's not lying exactly, more like a psychological defense, a way to make the rejection make sense in their own head, reduce that awful feeling of cognitive dissonance, loving someone you feel forced to hate. But it comes at a huge emotional cost to the child.
So that cold shoulder at prom,
Ah,
it might not even be about genuine hatred.
often it's not. It's driven by fear. Fear of the alienating parent's reaction. It's tragic, really. That rejection can almost be seen as proof of how much love is still there, that the alienating parent feels the need to suppress it so strongly.
What a painful situation. You try to be there, but their fear makes you invisible. Okay, let's talk about turning 18, adulthood, independence. What kind of hope does that bring for alienated parents?
18 often feels like a really significant turning point. Custody orders usually end. There's this hope, right, that maybe now the child will be free to choose, to reach out.
And sometimes that actually happens.
Yes, thankfully, sometimes it does. You hear these stories, 18-year-olds making contact, like an awakening, maybe triggered by leaving home, or just having that legal freedom. Dr. Baker always says, never give up hope, and these stories show why.
But that's not always the reality, is it?
No. Unfortunately, for many parents, the rejection just continues. The alienation has become so ingrained, it's like a habit. Some young adults use their independence to double down on the distance, maybe send really harsh messages, cut off contact completely. It's heartbreaking.
Why doesn't legal adulthood automatically fix it if the custody orders are gone?
Well, think about what Dr. Childress says. Severe alienation functions almost like a deeply held belief system, almost like an addiction in a way. That negative story about the targeted parent, it's been internalized over years. It's part of how they understand their family, their identity. Plus, the alienating parent's influence often doesn't just stop at 18. There can still be manipulation, maybe financial control, ways to keep that alignment going.
So that feeling of ambiguous loss, that despair, it can get even worse then, that fear of what if they never come back?
Exactly. That cycle of hope and despair Dr. Kornbluth talks about, it can really intensify. But it's so important to remember, the story isn't over at 18. Many alienated children do reconnect later, in their 20s, sometimes even later. The key message for parents is, keep that door open. Keep sending messages of love consistently, even if you get nothing back for a long time.
That must take incredible strength. Dealing with the depression, the anger, the grief.
It does. And that's why getting support is crucial. Therapy, support groups. Targeted parents need to take care of themselves through this. It's an immense emotional burden.
Okay, one more milestone, turning 21, another big coming-of-age moment. How does that usually play out?
Well, the fantasy might be, sharing that first legal drink, having a real adult conversation, celebrating together. But the reality for many alienated parents is silence again. Unanswered calls, ignored texts, just another painful marker of being shut out.
Is there still a chance for things to change around this age? Maybe maturity kicks in.
There is. Sometimes, yes. Increased maturity, maybe more life experience, can lead some young adults to start questioning the narrative they grew up with. You might see some thawing then. Maybe even the surprise reconnections, apologies. It does happen.
But for others, the alienation just continues.
Sadly, yes. For many, the estrangement is firmly entrenched by then. The adult child might truly believe they came to these conclusions on their own, the independent thinker idea. They might have ready-made excuses for the distance, and they've learned to suppress any guilt or sense of loss about the targeted parent.
And the dynamic can even shift, right? The adult child might start doing the alienating themselves.
It can, yes. They might actively perpetuate it now, on their own terms. The alienating parent's legacy continues, even if they're not actively pulling the strings anymore. The damage is done, and it keeps going.
That's deeply concerning. The ongoing pain for the parent, missing milestone after milestone and fearing they'll miss all the future ones too.
Absolutely. And this isn't just sadness, it's chronic stress, loss. It can lead to serious mental health issues, depression, anxiety, even PTSD-like symptoms. Research is really starting to recognize the trauma involved in long-term alienation. So prioritizing well-being, getting therapy, it's not selfish. It's essential for survival. As one mother said, it leaves a hole that doesn't fill, that constant ache.
But even then, even at 21 and beyond, there's still hope. People do reconnect later in life.
Yes, hope always remains. Many adult children eventually do confront the truth. Sometimes it takes a major life event, having their own kids is a big one, or encountering other stories of alienation, or a personal crisis that makes them reevaluate everything. The advice from experts like Dr. Warshak is consistent. Make sure they know always that they are loved and the door is open, without judgment.
It's such a long, difficult road. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the main things you want people listening to take away from this?
I think the biggest message is, if this is you, if you're a targeted parent, you are not alone. And this is not your fault. It's a form of emotional abuse. Recognize that. Also, know that your efforts to show love, even the ones that seem ignored, they matter. Those breadcrumbs, they can make a difference later. But you have to balance that hope with self-care. You just have to. Educate yourself, get support, find a good therapist, and remember, reconnection is possible, even after years.
So for someone listening right now, feeling this pain, what's the most important thing to hold on to?
Keep being the parent you are in the ways you still can. Hold on to your dignity. Find support. There are communities, experts who get it. And remember, the future isn't written yet.
That's a really powerful thought.
Yeah.
That the bond might bend, but doesn't have to break completely. That love endures. Like keeping a light on, right? Just in case they want to find their way back.
Exactly. And look, if this deep dive resonated with you today, we'd really appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe to the show. And please let us know in the comments what other topics you'd like us to explore. We do read those.
Yeah, we do. And we mentioned some great resources today, books by Dr. Baker, Warshak, Darnell, various websites. Check out the show notes. We might have affiliate links there.
Yeah.
Using those links is a great way to support the show if you're interested in those resources.
And finally, stay tuned. For our next deep dive, we're going to be exploring resilience and the path towards healing after family estrangement. Hope you'll join us for that.